of reference. Gotch has 37 years of doing all of these fantastic environmental testing things all around the state, and he's well known throughout the state and outside of here, with the Department of Natural Resources, Health and Mental Hygiene, Department of the Environment. He's been an environmental consultant for a long time. Oh, and the Anne Arundel County Health Department. And his company is Environmental Technical Services Incorporated. And he goes all over the state and gets things figured out. And he knows what you're dealing with as agents and lenders and title companies to get all this stuff just handled. So with no further ado, Wayne, I'm going to bring you in. And if you don't mind, Wayne, I may pop in a couple of comments if I see people or get questions from them. Is that okay with you?
That's fine.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Can you see my screen, Wayne?
Yes, I can.
Beautiful. Okay.
Everything's working on my end.
Yep. Everything's great. So is there anything else you wanted to share about yourself? Just introduce yourself a little bit more before we jump right into the fascinating slippery slope of oil tanks.
Well, the slide presentation is dated. I've been in the environmental business for 50 years now, so that was put together a while ago.
50 years. Okay,
yeah.
That's just showing off. I've only been a home inspector for 17, and I've only been a human for 51. So you win. All right. Sarah, thank you for the chuckle. I'm glad you got that. Yeah, it's great to see you. Okay. So Wayne, you want to hop in?
Sure. Okay, so underground storage tanks. It is a area that is high risk for real estate agents. The amount of liability that can be associated with a real estate transaction can get into thousands of dollars. So I'm going to go ahead and try to go along with this slide presentation and give you as much information as I can along the way.
Okay.
So what are...
There we go. Sorry.
Okay. So what are heating oil tanks? What are the types of tanks? Well, there's above ground and underground. There's also tanks that have leaked and tanks that are going to leak. So
that's like the home inspections. There's no such thing as a perfect home. There's only houses that have problems and houses that are going to have problems.
Okay, so when you're showing a client a property, or when you're negotiating with a client to list their property, you want to take a look at the underground storage tank, or take a look at the above ground storage tank. The things that you want to look for are the legs. Make sure they look stable. A lot of times you'll get corrosion where the leg of the tank meets the floor. Things like that can cause a catastrophic spill. The leg gives out, the tank falls over, and now you've got a big problem. You want to take a look at the tank, try to take a look at the bottom of it. That's the area where you'll have the most corrosion. If it's humid in the basement, you'll get condensation forming on the tank because of the temperature of the oil inside. And that condensation will run down to the bottom of the tank, and that's where your corrosion happens. Same thing happens inside the tank. If you have a tank that's outside and it's exposed to sun during part of the day, the tank will actually heat up. And when you have humid air moving in and out of the tank, the humid air will condense and go down to the bottom of the tank. That water sitting down in the bottom of the tank is what causes the tank to rust out and fail. Go ahead, move the slide. I think we went back to the same one we had before.
Yep.
Okay.
Wasn't sure if you saw all of this. If I just jumped ahead to show a picture of what an oil tank looked
Oh,
like in
okay.
case people hadn't seen one.
Okay. Um, so when you're looking at a tank, take a look at the filter, the lines. One of the things that were done a while back was considered a standard practice was when the line was ran along the foundation wall, they would put cement over it to protect it. Well, they found out later on that that does nothing more but create a situation for corrosion of the line. The limestone in the cement will actually corrode the copper line and you'll start to get a leak. So you may see along the wall where it's an angle area that's been filled with cement, and you'll see where it's stained from where the line is starting to leak.
Trying to
One
find
other
your
thing.
picture here. Here we go.
Okay. And do we have a picture there of the top of the tank? I think I was back a slide.
Yep. Here we go. This one?
All right. So yes. Okay. So when you're looking at the top of the tank, you want to make sure that the pipes are made of steel. Some people have gone and changed out the pipes. They've put in PVC pipes.
And
So PVC is an improper material for fill or vent.
so
If you
these
see,
two pieces, these two pipes
yes,
should be steel. And one of the tricks I use, and I don't know how else to do this, is I just put a magnet on it. I have a magnet on the bottom of my flashlight and I just touch it there. And if it stays there, then I know it's the right material. Do you have another way to do it? Like what if it's painted? How do you know?
well, basically, you can see where the connections, the elbows
Mm-hmm.
are thick. That's a dead giveaway that it's steel.
Okay.
If the connectors are not that large, then that could be copper pipe. The copper pipe was used for a while for connection on tanks. The only problem with copper is that it's a low melting point material. In the event of a fire, that pipe is going to be one of the first things to fail. And then you've got the oil inside the tank that are helping to feed the fire.
That's really dangerous.
Yes.
What about on the top of this? It looks like there's oil spilled on the top of this tank. Is that something to be looking for on inspections or when we're previewing a property for buyers?
So when you're looking at the pipes, you look at the joints, and if you see discoloration or you have an odor, then you know that the pipes are leaking. That's a situation where the pipes need to be disassembled and redoped so that they can be sealed up and prevent any additional leakage.
Okay. Would this be a concern, like the tank needs to be replaced with this damage to it right here? Or the staining?
Oil staining is not an indication of the tank needing to be replaced.
Okay.
The only time you really would need to replace the tank is if you have excessive corrosion on the bottom. You're not going to get corrosion on the top of the tank. You can get some paint where you'll see rusting, but for the most part, it is the bottom of the tank where the problems occur.
And that's because of the condensation from the different temperatures and the condensation just dripping down and being at the bottom and then against the
Con
legs.
Condensation and high humidity in the basement area,
Oh,
or
okay.
tanks could even be in a crawl space.
Oh,
So,
wow.
in a crawl space, there's no heat or air conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
and that's probably the most humid condition that it could be in.
So any humid area, like if this were in the basement and I noticed high humidity, it's not just thinking about mold or it just being humid down there. It's also to protect the oil tank.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I just want to look at this list and make sure I'm not jumping around too fast. I know you're doing such a good job without being able to see this very well on your computer and just doing it on your phone. I want to make sure that everyone gets to see the what you've got here. You said, is a vent alarm working properly? What's a vent alarm? And where's
So,
the vent? Say more about this, please.
okay, so typically on a tank, your lines coming off are going to, if they're the same size, um, on the top of the tank, the vent alarm um, it's typically red in color. If there's no paint on it, it is the closest attachment to the tank before the pipe starts to come off. Inside of that is a tube that goes down into the tank. And as the tank's being filled, the oil displaces the air inside the tank. That air is being pushed out through this tube and it will create a whistling sound. That whistling sound is for the delivery person to know that there's still space for oil to be put in the tank. When the oil comes up and gets to the tube and covers the bottom of the tube, it will stop whistling. That's an indication to the delivery person the tank is full and to shut off delivery.
Oh, so you're not guessing about what you need, and they don't have this is a however many gallon tank and just fill that much. They're actually listening for that.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Sarah has a question. Go ahead, Sarah.
I had to find the unmute button. What about underground tanks? Do they have the same function?
Yes, underground tanks also have the same vent whistle.
Where
How do
is
they
it
hear it?
located?
Well, the vent whistle is on top of the tank, and then the piping comes from the top of the tank up to the surface. So when they're filling it, they should have both. Now, you will run across tanks occasionally where there's only one pipe coming up. And in a case like that, they use what they call a snorkel. And basically, it's a delivery tube with a separate tube inside of it to allow the air to escape for them to hear when it gets to the point where, in other words, they put their own vent whistle into the tank when they go to do a delivery.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. And thank you for asking that, Sarah. That was my exact question. Wayne, I have a question about the delivery of oil. Is now a good time to ask you that?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. My parents had a house and bought a house with an oil tank. And when the oil delivery company came to deliver the oil, they said, we're not putting oil in that tank. It's too corroded. So you need to get a new tank before we'll do anything. Is that a normal thing, or do they come in the house and look at it before they deliver oil?
Yeah. Delivery companies, when you go to get a new company for delivering oil,
Mhm.
because of the liability attached to tanks failing, they will send out someone to inspect the tank to make sure it's safe for delivery.
Oh, okay. So like the first time when someone first does their oil delivery in their new
Yes.
house, someone's going to come look at it first. Would it be acceptable to have an oil delivery company come and look at it, like at the same time as the home inspection?
They can.
Okay. Thank you. Is there more you want to add, or would you like me to go back to this here?
Well, let me see if we've got everything covered. The list that's shown here is actually found on the MDE website.
I will.
So,
I'll put that here in the chat.
yeah.
Okay. So the vent alarm, we're looking for insect nests and making sure the vent is free of ice, snow, rust, and insect nests. So basically, if there's anything on there that doesn't look like clean and good, then that's what you're looking for? Is that?
Right.
Yep. Okay.
Now on the subject of insect nest, I have been on several spills where insects have built a nest inside the vent cap. And what it does, it blocks the ability of air to escape when it's being filled. So you've got oil being delivered at about 40 to 50 gallons a minute. That's displacing a lot of air. That air has to have a place to go to. If there's something blocking the vent pipe, it will overpressurize the tank and the tank will actually split.
Oh, okay. That's that was very surprising. I never thought about that. So then is the wow, okay. And there was another question coming in. Can the tank be in the ceiling?
In the ceiling.
Like in the attic, if there's no basement and there's no crawl space and it's not outside.
I've never found a tank located in the ceiling.
Okay. So it doesn't mean that it's not happened, but it's not something you've ever seen. Would it be acceptable for it to be there? I mean, we have water heaters up there sometimes and air handlers, furnaces.
No, it would. There's one main problem with the tank being up that high. The delivery of oil to the tank couldn't be accomplished because you would have to have the hose and the nozzle taken up to where the tank is to fill it. The reason why tanks are located outside the home or in the basement is because the delivery person can get to the tank, they can get the nozzle attached to the top of the tank and fill it. This whole thing is based on gravity once it's pumping. And if you have a tank higher than the level of a person standing there, the oil is going to run back out of the pipe when they go to disconnect it.
Oh, okay. So there's not even such thing as like doing it through the wall, the siding, and there's a check valve on it that would allow that to happen. It's just not done. Is that what you're saying?
And
Basically.
some of the commercial applications, you will have it where it's got a check valve on it.
Okay.
Yeah, but those are far and few between. We have a couple. It's becoming more popular. I'll put it that way. Now with people pulling their underground storage tanks going to above ground storage. Some of the big truck terminals that now have above ground tanks, there will be a check valve at the delivery point. Delivery point will be somewhere around 4 to 4.5 feet above the ground, and it actually pumps up to the top of the tank. That can be up around maybe 8 to 10 feet above ground. So in order to keep that fuel from coming back out, that's got a quick disconnect check valve.
Okay. Just not normally done on it put
No,
in the attic. Okay.
no. This check valves actually cost more than what the installation of a home heating oil tank would be.
Oh wow. Okay, holy smokes.
Yeah.
Therese, have you seen that in a ceiling? Did you just have a property with that, or does that?
I saw it in the ceiling, but not here, not in United States.
Ah, okay. Well, thank you.
So yeah. Just
Well,
wanted
great
to-
question.
Great
question. Okay. Signs of spills. I mean, that's what we've already talked about that, I think, right? Where you're
Yes.
seeing oil. And then I guess the average amount of oil being used, still looking at your list, is like what how do you know what's being used and what's not, like what the average amount is of being used?
Well, again, this list came from Maryland Department of the Environment. They're basically saying if you're having to fill the tank more frequently than what you're used to, then it's time to take a look and see if there's a leak.
And that makes sense. So part of it would be if you're working with a seller, you want to ask them about their oil usage.
Yes.
And then if you're working with a lot of people just working with a buyer are going to go in, and I guess that's something that the buyer's agent would ask the seller's agent. I know you and I are, this is beyond the scope of what we do, but we have a lot of people here that, that I'm sure are wondering, how do we find
Yeah.
that out? Is that like asking about the BG&E bill?
Yes, very similar.
Okay. Okay. Carolyn, I saw you got unmuted. Did you have a question?
No.
Okay. If you do, let me know. Okay. Any questions on here before I move along? Okay. And Wayne, you stop me. Maybe point out what's in these pictures so that we can just, we've talked about things with the tank. And if you could just like say what we're seeing here, and then we'll scoot along to these other, because these are above ground, and consider just what you should know is that these are what is buried underground too. And you know,
Right,
metal.
right.
So that's why there are so many pictures of it above ground, because the underground ones are usually so deteriorated you can't see them. And I'm closing my door before the dogs start barking. So don't freak when I disappear, Wayne. I'll be right back.
Okay. So the looking at these photos, the middle tank is one where you can actually see a spill or leakage on the bottom. It looks like that you can see the line coming off near the white bucket down. Yes, right in there. Yes.
Okay.
So you have the discoloration. Now, the problem with an oil spill inside the home is you can clean up the oil. You can get the oil out, but you won't get the odor out. The odor will be generated from the concrete where the oil has soaked into the concrete. And one of the things that I require clients where I'm replacing their tank inside the home is that the area where the tank goes in, I insist that they get that section of the floor coated with either paint or varnish or epoxy. And what will happen is that when the tank leaks, if there is any leakage, you can wipe up the oil spill and there's no odor. The odor will dissipate in a day or two.
Now, will that seal in the odor that's already there if there's a leak?
Well, you're
If
not
there's
looking
been a
to
leak?
seal in, yeah, you're not looking to seal in any odors. What you're looking to do is, considering that you have clean concrete where there's been no oil soaked into it, in order to do a proper installation for a new tank, you want to have that floor sealed to where if anything does drip.
Okay. But what if I'm being devil's advocate, and Wayne, I love that you're so easy to go with the flow, because I know your experience is just so vast that these questions don't throw you. But the I guess my question is, if you know, as you're working with your listing agent and you're working with a seller, and there's a leak on the floor, you say, I don't know what oil smells like. You walk downstairs and you smell it and you go, oh, okay. Then, and it's already, and the tank's been replaced. Can you seal that up? Is there a way to get rid of that odor? Or do you have to dig it up? And then also, after you respond to that, we have a question from an agent.
Okay. Removal of the oil odor is the hardest part. There are several things that can be done. Typically, if you have a small spill on the floor, the quickest way to address that problem is to wipe it up and then use simple green concentrate. Or simple green concentrate on it. It's great. It will soak into the concrete. It will cause the oil to break down to the point where you'll eliminate some of the odors. And then at that point, you just hope that you've got enough out of there to where it didn't soak into the floor very far.
Okay, and if it did soak in very far, is there anything that can be done?
Basically, the concrete can be taken out and then replaced.
Oh, okay, that was not what we wanted to hear, just as anyone wanted to hear. Okay, thank you, Wayne. Go ahead, Paula.
So when we're looking at this middle picture and there is staining above the tank, it doesn't look like it's being wicked up, the oil spill being wicked up, but because it is a concrete block, is that a possibility? Could that stain be part of being wicked up the wall?
Okay, so if you have a stain on the wall and it doesn't appear to be from rainwater infiltration, if your fill pipe going to the tank comes in through that area, then I would say that there's most likely a leak in the pipe in a joint that is causing that problem in addition to what's on the floor.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Good question, Paula. Any other questions about these? Oh, I did want to ask this. Does anyone have questions about these pictures? Okay, so here I wanted to just ask you about just identifying these pieces that we see in this picture. Wayne, would you
Yes.
just do that, please? And then we can get into some more fun pictures that no one's seen yet. So this is the tank, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Having never seen that photo before, let me see here. If I can enlarge that. Okay. Yeah, so on the tank, it looks like on top of the tank, on the far end, that is your gauge.
Right here?
And yes, well, no, next one over. That one looks like the gauge. Or that possibly the gauge could be the one in the middle. The
Okay.
one in the middle is what you call a combination vent fill alarm.
Okay.
On that, it's sort of wide, and when you look at it, you've got a pipe coming off, and you've also got a gauge sitting there also.
Okay.
The other one on the closest end, that's the fill pipe.
Okay. So that's the fill pipe. And
Yes,
this is the body of the tank. And
yes,
these are the
correct.
legs. These are the legs that you were talking about checking for corrosion.
Yes.
Is it okay that it's up? I mean, does it have to be level? Like an air conditioning unit outside? Should be level?
Typically tanks will be sloped to one end. You want to see that it's at least stable. If you can go up to the tank and push against it and it will rock, then there needs to be some adjustment done to the supports for it.
Okay. And then what's this? Is this related to that? This, and I know this is the first time you've seen this picture. I just grabbed more pictures and plunked them in here. So is this a vent line?
That looks like a vent line to an underground storage tank.
Okay.
So
That's what I
so
thought.
that
So like there's another
Yeah.
tank somewhere, or there was.
Yeah, so there could have been an underground storage tank on the property, and they may have run into a problem with fuel being drawn out of the lines where the lines have corroded or difficulty, and they just went ahead and installed an above ground tank, hooked that up, and just ignored the underground storage tank.
Okay. Well, that's a so then my next question is, I see this and so let's say I'm the listing agent. I'm there getting ready to list the property. What questions as the listing agent am I asking the seller? And because then I'm going to get to what is the buyer's agent looking for? I mean, like when they see this, then what do they do? So if you could just answer that all encompassing, that would be awesome.
Okay. So
Thank you.
the first question to be asked would be, what is that tank associated with? If they have any knowledge of an underground storage tank on the property, a pipe like that needs to be either evaluated by the home inspector, who has knowledge of what they're really looking at, or a person in my line of work.
So really, if we're on a home, obviously I'm a home inspector and I want everyone to use me as a home inspector. And no matter how many times I've talked to you, I'm still never going to be the expert on this. So I would recommend, as the home inspector, and any other home inspector you use, unless they've got an extensive background in it, they should say, this should probably be checked out by someone, and I've got someone to do this. We can just call you, Wayne, right?
Yes.
And I'm going to put your information in the chat, but they could text you pictures, right? I know I text you pictures all the time. Can other people just text you pictures with questions?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the quickest way to get if there's a quick answer to be given, do it by all means.
Okay, thank you. And then you just schedule a time to go out if you can't answer the question or need to do other stuff, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, Paula?
I know of a real estate transaction. I was not a party to it. A person moved in, renovated the house, came home. It was a couple of years that they had lived there. Came home and EPA was there. Evidently, the previous homeowner neglected to disclose that there was an underground tank, and nobody knew about it, and it had leaked. And EPA, I guess they do, I don't know if they do flyover scans or whatever, but they determined there was a tremendous amount of oil spill on their property, and they came in. It was thousands, like over $10,000 for them to clean it up, and it was no fault of their own. So when you had just mentioned that little pipe, I have no idea if there was ever a pipe like that. What can a homeowner do? It's just kind of scary when people don't disclose things.
Okay. So what I run into a lot is when I'll come out to a property to do an evaluation if there was a tank there. There are several things we do. One, we take a look at the neighboring properties. If neighboring properties have underground storage tanks and the property I'm looking at doesn't, or they're claiming it doesn't, then I become suspicious that somebody took an effort to hide the fact that there was an underground storage tank. What you'll find is occasionally they will go and remove the pipes. So it's like, oh, it's not there. Pipes are gone. In a case like that, you will have where eventually the tank will leak and, there's a problem. I had one down in Annapolis near the Bay Bridge just last year where real estate transaction, it was suspected that there was a tank, but nobody really knew. When I went inside the home, you could see where the two lines came through the wall, two copper lines. That would be a supply and return. That's the first giveaway when you're looking at a property, either for a buyer or seller. Look on the wall near the furnace or boiler and see if there's two lines coming through. If you don't see two lines, look and see if there's two spots where the concrete was patched, two holes. That's first key indicator. We actually went outside because we saw the two lines. We went outside. We picked up where the lines were coming through the wall, traced them out into the yard, and probably about 20 feet out from the front of the house, we found the tank. The tank was 3/4 full of oil and had been that way through 2 or 3 real estate transactions. Nobody knew it. Every time the property was transferred, the person before them didn't know anything about it. So this was taken care of as far as removing the pipes, probably about 20 years ago.
Wow. I have one other question, if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
It's an underground tank, but not an oil tank. What about gas tanks? I've seen two properties that years ago gas tanks had been installed, but they're no longer in use, and nobody
Okay.
knows if there's gas in there.
So are you talking about gasoline or?
Yes, like a gasoline tank.
Yes.
I actually grew up in a house that had one back when I guess in the 70s when you had the gas crunch.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And because the homeowner had a full tank of gas in the house, I mean, a full thing, it didn't affect us because we had, I think it was like 100 gallons. And so my dad just kept filling up his car and never had to wait in those long lines.
Right.
But I mean, that was back in the 70s. I went back by the house not too long ago and the gas tank's not there. Who knows if anybody ever dug it up, but that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, a gasoline tank on a property is actually more dangerous than an oil tank. The problem is gasoline is a thinner petroleum product, and when it leaks from the tank, it will travel a distance. When oil leaks from the tank, it will pretty much stay around where the tank is. It will travel some distance only if there is a large volume of oil available for the contamination.
So Wayne,
Gasoline,
how much is
yeah.
usually, what's the average tank size? Like, when you say large volume, I'm thinking a gallon would be a lot. But what's usually there if it were a
Well,
full tank?
Well, a typical underground storage tank is going to be somewhere between 300 to 500, 550 gallons in size. We do have tanks that are larger on properties. I mean, I've had several that have had 1,000-gallon tanks. If any of you know Joe Bird,
Mhm.
um, he had an 8,000-gallon heating oil tank on his property. And the property he has was built by his grandfather, and his grandfather put the tank in the ground. We had to abandon that one. It was right on the edge of Liberty Reservoir. So you can have tanks of some very unusual sizes, but the typical size is around 300 to 550 gallons.
Wow. Okay, thank you. So that's a lot, and it doesn't travel in the soil like gasoline does.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Do you have another question, Paula?
Oh, no, that was my question. I'm sorry. I thought I had
Nope.
lowered my hand. Or did I
I
raise it
think-
or lower it? I can't see.
It's now it's up again. That's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I did the
okay.
wrong thing. Okay, yeah. I thought I
It-
lowered it
This is not an auction. You're allowed to put up your hand and take it down anytime
multiple
without having
times. Okay.
without any repercussions. Let's go back here just so that we can get a little more information. I wanted to show this picture here. Wayne was talking about sometimes the oil line being under the concrete. So this is an inside pipe, and then we're going to get right over back to the underground storage tanks. But I wanted to share this. I just found this and pulled it in here so that you could see it. If you see the little, what is this, Wayne? Is this a fill line? Taking it, or not a fill line, but a line taking it from the pipe, from the tank into the boiler?
I'm sorry, I had everything enlarged for looking at details. I didn't see it. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, this is basically a demonstration of where the line would go into the floor and then come back up.
Okay. So if you see this, and that's usually copper, right?
Yes.
So if you see a little copper line sticking out of the ground, then that's in the basement, that's a sign.
Yes.
Okay. I know I've
Now-
seen it in basements and garages, like it was
Mhm.
the tank was in the garage, or we thought it was in the garage, but it was actually underground behind the garage. But it was these lines that had us going, wait a minute, there's something else here. It was the only clue.
Right. So in a situation like this, my recommendation would be to abandon that line, have it cleaned out, and run a new line above ground so that you can see it. The line running through the concrete like that is nothing more than just a recipe for disaster down the road.
Okay.
When the line does leak, it's going to contaminate the concrete, and the only way to get rid of it at that point is to take the concrete out and replace it.
Holy smokes. And so you really want to be able to see it so that you can tell if it's leaking.
Yes.
Okay. Like a condensate line from the air conditioner. You don't want that to be dripping somewhere you can't see it. You want to make sure that it's or the TPR valve from a water heater. You want to see the end of it. Okay.
Correct.
You could tell I'm a home inspector, right, Wayne? I know you are too, but that's what it makes me think of. Okay. So next, just wanted to share these pictures. I know you haven't seen these either. I just pulled them up, and this was my son's house in Montana, and I was just there, got home yesterday, and was just explaining to him what these were. So, and the oil tank, fill pipe, vent pipe. So I figured I would share those so you could say anything you
Yeah.
wanted to about those before we get right underground.
So you were the bearer of bad news, right?
Yeah. Well, the federal government owns this property because he lives in forest ranger housing because he's a wildland firefighter in Montana. So this is the government's problem. But yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. The federal government is probably one of the biggest violators of environmental laws, only because they can never get anything done.
Yes, I could understand that.
So the top photo, you can see where the fill line going into the tank is actually leaking, and you can see the shiny oil coming down the side of the tank.
That's this here, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Now you've got an unusual stain next to it over on the vent side where it looks like something has actually cleaned the tank from leaking. I would say that's probably either a leaking pipe above it or something else that's causing that to occur.
So like not even related to the tank, but maybe
Right.
a
Yeah.
toilet leaking or something up there.
Right. Because
Interesting.
if it was oil coming back up, you would have the shiny, it would be discolored,
Okay.
darker, not
Okay.
lighter. Yeah.
Okay. And then here we've got the fill pipe and the vent pipe here.
Yes.
Okay. And these are just
And
different styles, right?
right.
Okay.
Now, notice at the bottom of the pipes where they go through the wall, you can see where they penetrate the wall.
Mhm.
That's actually a good installation. Now, where we have run into problems is where the pipes will go down into the dirt, and they go down a foot or so before they turn to go into the basement.
No.
You
So
will have
they
a problem with
deteriorate?
it. So those steel pipes go into the ground and then go into the building. Those pipes are a problem because they will rust and decay. And when you go to fill the pipe, hook up to the fill pipe, you're actually pumping oil into the ground in addition to into the tank.
Oh, geez, Louise. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
so we've done a few spills with that too.
oh my gosh. So we're going to get into this here, and I'm committed that we all are able to get on with other things right around 10. If we have to go over and you need to go at 10, I'll understand. And you won't be penalized in any way. However, we want to get through this, and I want to be able to have time so you can get your questions. So right a minute before 10 or so, I'm going to get your information, Wayne, and just plop it in the chat. But here we go. So let's, oh my gosh. And I've got the next is a couple diagrams so that you can see those. So the big thing about underground storage tanks that you are just talking about is they're out of sight, out of mind. People aren't thinking about maintaining them or don't know they're there. 3 generations of, or 3 iterations of home buyers, 3 real estate transactions. Nobody knows it's there. What to look for, we've been talking about. And you've got a good rule of thumb here.
Right. I'm not sure what the good rule of thumb was.
Okay, that's.
This thing's been around a while.
I totally have you out of whack, just jumping around. I am so sorry. Um,
That's
this
okay.
this isn't the best picture, but it kind of shows. So, or this one to just
Okay.
show what you were just talking about.
Mhm.
So this is the tank and the fill pipe. Now would the whistle thing go right in here that the delivery person would put in here?
Well, the
And then,
whistle would actually be, okay, if you come down to the tank,
mhm,
come over to the right pipe, the right side,
Mhm.
right in there, right at the top of the tank is where the vent whistle would be installed.
okay. So when they're filling it,
So when they're filling it, they're hooking to the pipe on the left, top,
okay,
oil's flowing into the tank. It's displacing the air in the tank and pushing it back through the vent whistle up out to the vent.
that's very useful and very logical. Thank you for making sure that I got that right. And then this is supplying it in to the
Supply and
boiler.
return, yes.
Okay, so
Now, as I indicated before, when you're inside the basement and you're looking around where the furnace or boiler is, you see two lines coming through. These are the two lines that you're looking for. One is supply, the other is return. If you have lines there and they've been disconnected, that's your first indication that there either is an underground storage tank or there was a tank that was removed.
okay. Thank you. Any questions about this, folks? Okay. These are what they look like coming out of the ground, just to give you some idea. I think I put these in the email I sent out to you. I thought this was a neat one, Wayne, because it's got like, this is, you can't see this underground tank. There's a buried tank, but there are clues
Right.
that the seller or that you as the agent should be looking for.
Yeah. On the subject of tanks, where I was saying that if you see underground storage tanks at neighboring properties, but you don't, somebody's saying they don't have one on theirs, they never did, that's to be questioned. I had a case come up where I was working in Colombia and I had a property that we were looking at for removal of a tank. And this tank was on, let me see if I can find it real quick. Okay, the tank was on, or the property was on Slender Sky in Colombia. All of the houses in that neighborhood were on natural gas heat, except for this one house. So if you're looking to either represent or represent a buyer or a seller, and you know that there's natural gas on the street, or you've talked to other people and they say, oh, we have natural gas, do not assume that the property you're representing has natural gas. That entire neighborhood's natural gas except for one home. And the owner told me that the prior owner of the property had the house built, they requested oil heat. So
Wow.
this entire neighborhood is natural gas, except for this one home. It's got an underground storage tank in the backyard. And typically your underground storage tanks are located up against the foundation of the home, because during construction, it's easier for the plumber or the installer to make the hole a little larger along the foundation and put the tank in there. This is a case where the excavation was already backfilled, so they dug a hole further out in the yard. 20 feet away from the back of the house is where this tank was located.
Oh my.
So
So
you wouldn't have seen it.
yeah. So, and then, but they still, like, they could still have natural gas for whatever, I don't know, the dryer and stove.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
but holy smokes, you've got to be on the ball and paying attention to this because otherwise you just never know.
Right. Right. So you could miss it very easily. So there are things that you want to look for. You want to know what the neighboring properties have. You want to look in their basement. You want to look along the walls. You want to, you know, there's a whole process to checking all the boxes.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Now I'm at your pictures here of the fill lines for tanks that you've got some hidden ones. You'll recognize these.
Right.
So here's
Yeah.
one. This is unusual. I was surprised to see that this was one.
Yeah, the only thing that really gives this away is the fact that there's a concrete slab around it, a little square slab that's about 1 foot by 1 foot, and that's a fill pipe right in the middle.
Okay, so that's this.
Yes.
Okay. So then and Karen has asked like just saying a lot of the pipes look like other pipes along the outside of the house. What are the how do you tell the difference between what pipe is what pipe? Are there
Well, I guess
distinguishing
it's,
characteristics about these?
yeah, I guess it's just experience. On this, you see the cap. The cap is actually brass, and it has four like little lugs inside of it.
Mhm.
The only time you're going to see that is going to be for an underground storage tank that gets oil.
Okay, so
So
that's
oil,
not
oil
used for
tank,
something else.
yeah, oil tank or gas tank, gasoline.
Okay. And then thank you. And I think Karen, we could talk about that a little more offline about those distinguishing characteristics. You just kind of have to just look at lots of pictures of them, and I can send you some more images of those.
Thanks,
Okay.
Rachel.
Of course. Yeah. I have learned so much from Wayne, and I love it every time I learn something new. Okay. This one.
Okay.
Oh,
Now, when you're looking for a tank, I mean, go back one photo. Okay, you're looking around. You say, "Oh, where's the pipe? Where's the pipe?" No, I don't see a pipe. Well, that pipe is hidden right on the edge of this walkway. Go to the next photo.
now, were there clues about this inside that had you looking for it?
Well, we knew there was a tank on the property, or at least somebody said there may be a tank on the property. Okay. Then when you come in closer, that's the actual pipe that you're looking at, right where that
Right
arrow is
here.
pointing.
Right
So
here.
it's not always very easy to find if there is an underground storage tank.
Okay. But if you know it's there, then you're looking for it. If you don't know, basically, you're
Well,
just looking for clues.
yeah. The question was, a realtor had contacted me and said, the heating system was upgraded, and we think it was switched over from oil to gas, natural gas, but we don't know if there was a tank, if it was above ground or underground. And they did a good job of taking out all the equipment and cleaning up the area where two lines came through the wall. So I had to look around on the outside of the home and try to locate if there was any signs of a tank. And that's what we found.
Wow. Incredible. Now, had you removed a top? Had there been a little cap on it or something?
I believe there was a little cap on it, but like the first photo that
Mhm.
showed the cap with the four little lugs in it, that style of cap was on there. So
Okay.
it was, it was hard to find.
Yeah. So you really are an investigator.
Yes, that's
And then
exactly right. You got to investigate.
yes. So you're doing the investigation, you find it, like you test the soil too, right? Like the EPA has you're required to test the soil to remove soil and other
Yeah,
stuff too.
yeah. Typically, we test the soil when a tank is removed. We have to test the soil under the tank. State of Maryland likes to see tanks removed if at all possible. It does several things. One, you get a really good view of what's going on as far as if the tank was leaking, at what level in the tank it was leaking. You could find a tank that was leaking from the top of the tank and not the bottom.
Mm,
We had a couple of them like that, where the connections for the supply and return, where they are connected to the tank, the return line was broken off. So every time the pump was running in the home for oil, it was pumping oil into the soil on the return side.
oh, geez, Louise.
So taking the sample
Sorry,
by
Paula has
removing,
a question also.
okay,
Is that something homeowners insurance would cover, or is that out of pocket for a homeowner?
that's out of pocket. Very few homeowners insurance policies cover any environmental problems.
That's amazing. Okay, so, and I just want to acknowledge it's 10 o'clock. I know some of you will have to go. I will put this up on our YouTube channel along with the other classes we've had later on today or tomorrow morning. So it'll be there and you could check it out if you want to see the last little bits that we handle here, because I know people have to go. But Wayne, let's hop through these. This one, there's actually, oh, let me see. This one, you've got two different things here that I'm seeing. I only have I see only an arrow to one of them. Here's the
Okay,
other one.
yeah, and the one over to the left is the vent cap.
Okay,
Yeah, right there.
and there's the fill line.
Yes.
Okay, this one. Is there one behind this bush or something?
Yeah, I believe it's behind the bush.
Okay.
It's actually in the bush,
Okay,
so you don't see it very easily.
no, but you are an investigator. Like, I think Baltimore City should hire you. Okay, so here we go. We've also got, these were what we were talking about before, just some surprise photos I threw in to test your knowledge.
Right.
This was showing that, just seeing them coming in through the wall, because I thought, most people don't know that, what that is when you see that. 'Cause
Right.
it's like,
That's the supply and return lines coming through the wall and then going back into the floor so that they can come around and then come up to the furnace.
wow. And so we don't know what's happening under there.
Right.
And then this is supply and return as well.
Yes.
Okay. And copper's good, so that's what's there.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
and what's this?
And that looks like supply and return also, just coming through the wall.
Okay.
Or maybe, looks like it might only be one line. So that would be just a supply line. Which in some cases, when one of the lines goes bad, they will disconnect that line and hook to the other line. So you can have a supply line that goes bad. They will switch it over and hook it on the return line and change the settings on the furnace so it can accept a single line and then just pull fuel from the tank on one line and not have a return.
Oh, okay. So what is a return line for? So there's a supply line, makes sense, like it's supplying the oil to burn. What's the return line for?
So it has to do with the volume of oil that the pump can push past the furnace. When you have a supply and return, you can draw oil at a higher rate than what you can on a single line. So a single line, you may run into a problem where you're not able to pull the oil into the furnace. You actually cause the oil to separate into a vapor, and then you got an air bubble and it will stop supplying. Whereas with the return, it's almost like having your car trying to pull away from a traffic light or
Mhm.
having the engine running at 60 miles an hour, where if you're running at a high speed, you don't have to worry about getting up to speed. Getting up to speed would be what a single line would do. Being at the higher speed would be what the double line would do.
Okay. So you're revving your engine at a stoplight with your foot on the brake if
Right.
without the return line, but with the supply and return line, your foot's on the gas, your foot's off the brake, and you're able to just work.
Yes.
Okay.
So it cuts down on the resistance at the pump because the pump is pulling, but there's only a low volume of oil that's being sprayed into the furnace. Whereas when you have the supply and return, the oil is being pulled and it's being circulated back to the tank. And all it's doing is off streaming a little bit of the oil for the burner.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's very useful. Thank you. Also, thank you, because that's great. And then also Jen Peters wanted me to say hi to Uncle Wayne.
Hi, Jen.
Thank you, Mike. Oh, okay. I think basically the last stuff the other slides we've already talked about. So we're gonna this is just there's so much and we've covered it, but I feel like we could just talk about this forever. So everybody's got access to your information, Wayne. I have also put it in the chat along with your email address.
Cell phone's the best number to call me.
Okay, and to text you pictures, you just text a picture and put your name so they know so they know
Yes,
who you are.
yeah. Please put your name in there.
Okay, and so I would program him into your phone. He is in my phone, same thing, and I've got him because of just all those questions. And I didn't know you were Jen's uncle. That's even better, Wayne. Any questions before we go? Wayne, I really, really cannot thank you enough for being here. You have just made a scary situation or an unknown situation a little clearer. It's still, I get that people are pretty scared now just because it's like there's more, people are more concerned about things they may have seen and not known what they were and kind of just missed them when they're at houses. So expect to hear from some people. And if you email me or respond in some way to me, I will connect you with Wayne. Ahmed, did you have a question? Did we get your question answered?
You may have. I had to step out for a couple minutes.
Okay, but did
My
you?
question was
Go ahead.
for oil removal. Like I have a client who's got some oil hanging around. They got the tank removed already, but the oil is still there. So if you have a company that will pick up the oil, would be wonderful.
I could take care of that for you.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, great. Ahmed, are you in a position where you can put your number into the chat for Wayne, or do you want him to, or do you want to just reach out to him after our call?
I got his number and I will leave my number in the chat as well.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you for your questions and for your participation. Sarah, thank you for being on camera for a little bit so I could see your face. That was wonderful. And Paula, it was wonderful to see you in person the other day. Thank you all for being here. Wayne, thank you. And thank you, Sarah. It's just nice to see a face sometime.
If you all have a few more minutes, Maryland changed their regulations. They went into effect, I think about a year and a half ago now. The reimbursement program has some substantial changes to it. If a property is assessed by SDAT as being $300,000 or less, you can get 100% reimbursement with a $20,000 cap and your $500 deductible. If the property assesses at 300 to 600,000, you will get 50% reimbursement on your expenses with a $10,000 cap and $500 deductible.
And this is
If the
for removal of the soil and the oil and the tank?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. And this is only if the tank had leaked and there's contamination.
okay,
If the property assessed for over 600,000, you only get a 25% reimbursement with a $5,000 cap. So they did all these changes because they were running out of money in the fund and they were trying to get caught up. They wanted to make it more, try to make it more fair for everybody. And so those are the new limits and coverages.
thank you. And you'll be able to connect people with all of that, right? And Susan is asking, where can we find these caps changes? Where can we find this information?
At the MDE website, under underground storage tanks, there is a tab that, let me see if I can click on it here real quick. It's okay. Okay, so Maryland Department of the Environment, go to, I believe it's land management, and then underground storage tanks. There is a tab on the left-hand side that says fact sheets and publications. Under fact sheets and publications, there's a couple different titles going down. Remediation. Let's see, guys. Underground storage tanks. There's a lot of information to read through, but I believe it's in that area in there.
Okay,
They have an actual tab that you can click on that will tell you about the reimbursement fund and the forms that are required and what qualifies a property and what isn't a qualification.
that is super useful. And I will find it and send out a link or get the link from you, Wayne, and send that. I need to go and head out to my 10:30. This is just, we could just keep going. And so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, so I'm going to end the call and I'm going to follow up with you, Wayne, to get more information. I've texted you Ahmed's phone number in case you didn't see it in the chat, because you've been full of information and busy. Really just taking the questions and going with the flow and answering questions. So thank you. And I will look forward to talking with you all later. If you have questions, Wayne is a resource to beat the band, is the only way I could say. He's fantastic. So thank you, Wayne. And
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Sarah. Thanks, Joe. Bye, Sherry. Bye,
Thanks
Jen.
a lot. Bye.
Bye. You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you.